Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Risk Matrix with James Junkin and myself, Dr. Martin. There he is.
Jingle bells, is almost here. I'm telling you.
The holidays are coming, James.
Santa
Christmas
Claus is an Alabama fan. Yes, he is. I'm telling you, old Saint Nick. No blue and orange on the Saint Nick. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, roll Tide. There are a lot of holidays around this time of year, and we wish everybody a happy one, whatever you celebrate. We sure are excited finishing out our 2025. We're going to talk today about some of the things that we predicted that would be hot topics for 2025 and kind of where we landed on them. Maybe a little bit of opinion in there because we're prone to do that. Before that, though, James, I have a rip from the headlines. And this hits a little bit home here in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, in New England. We've had these happen in the past. We had another one happen this week, a trench collapse down on Cape Cod, and one worker was killed. Another couple were injured. Not really sure what the specifics were, but it was stated it was a complicated rescue for the ones that did survive. And I just want to bring that up there, James. I've seen this happen. It was an OSHA topic, a national emphasis, trench safety for a while there, and also in this region. And I can't say enough about the uses of preventative measures when we're working in excavations.
Look,
it's a sad day.
My thoughts and prayers go out to the families of everybody that was involved in this incident and their co-workers. But I am tired of hearing about trench collapses and people dying in excavations. There is no reason somebody should die in a trench collapse and excavation. It is clear what the standards are. It is clear what the rules are. OSHA has begged and begged and begged and begged people on what to do to protect your workers. You cannot tell me that you don't know how to protect your workers in excavation and trenching. It has to end. It has to end. There's training programs, education programs, or YouTube videos that can give you breakdowns of all these instances.
Good training. Good training, James. I mean, we know what to do. I think workers know what to do. I think we get involved in these things. Just a quick minute, right? We had a couple years back, we had one where the trench box was on site or close by. They didn't want to use the trench box. It was just going to take a minute, and the worker died.
That's all it takes. We had one, I think, trying to remember. I don't think we worked this case. Maybe we did, at least in the preliminary, where we had a father on site as the foreman, end up burying his son and another co-worker in the trench collapse, right? Yep. Nobody means for it to happen. But all the I'm sorries and I wishes and we gonas are not going to bring them back. There's not going to
do the right thing. Right? And I talk to people every day when I go out on sites, because I do a lot of site visits in the Boston area, site inspections, etc. And we talk every day about, well, it was only going to take a minute, or yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like it, or whatever, right? That's not going to be any consolation if somebody gets hurt, right? There's no consolation for it, and you're going to wish you shoulda, coulda, woulda. And so, I say to these people, you need to do the right thing now, even if it takes some extra time.
Most common phrase before disaster: we ain't got time for this crap. Well, you're gonna make time at the deposition.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So let's get into our 2025. 2025 kind of, they weren't really predictions. Maybe they were predictions.
Yeah, we were the episode 76. If you want to check us out, go back to episode 76. Today is 120, about to start season 3 of the Risk Matrix. But these were some of the things that we predicted would be hot issues in 2025. So let's see if we were right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first one because this is kind of my pet peeve. We talked about this on the phone yesterday, actually. AI integration into OSH, right? We got a lot of talking heads out there right now. AI is the next big thing. AI. Okay. What have we seen? A lot of talk. A lot of
I
talk
don't
about
know
AI.
we've seen it actually improve worker safety. What I've seen it do is become a crutch in some cases for original thought.
Agreed.
Okay.
I think I can agree there. I think I can agree with the fact that we bring it up a lot. I see a lot of talking heads, academics in particular, that are talking about the use of AI to do better data crunches, to look for new ideas on how to look at, who's a good company, who's a bad company, or we have risk, don't have risk. But I haven't really seen anybody doing the work to show us how AI can be used, right? It's all theoretical at this point.
Yeah,
And
I see people using it in create me a JHA on this, right? Write me a policy on that. And the problem with that is it misses the nuances. The AI only knows what you give it. And most
that's right.
people are not putting the right prompts in to generate the response from the AI that's specific enough to be used as a work instruction. And we spend 5 minutes doing that and it spits it out. We don't check it. Next thing you know, we're putting it out there as a deliverable. I use AI every day, and it's great. It gives me a lot of,
But
uh,
you check it.
yes, absolutely.
Right.
Gives me
That's
a
right.
lot of things to build on, stuff that I haven't considered, helps with tremendous amount when it comes to research. Use it responsibly, but walk back and check it and make sure you're adding to anything you're producing with AI. For example, training programs. I can go right into this AI and say, make me a training program for lockout tagout, but you better check it.
Better check it.
Better check it. Okay. So it has become the buzzword in safety in 2025.
Totally agree, James. And I'm just going to quote from Cuba Gooding Jr., right, in the Tom Cruise movie. I can't remember what the name of the movie was, but he says, "Show me the money, show me
Jerry
the
Maguire. Jerry Maguire. Show me the
Jerry
money.
Maguire. Show me the money. Show me how it works because I see a lot of people talking and a lot of lip service about how AI is going to make our lives better in OSH, and I haven't seen it. So let's move on. Heat illness.
Heat illness prevention standard is still sitting there waiting, and it's probably where it's going to be. This
For
one
the
may survive court challenges. It may not survive court challenges. We just got a new head of OSH to come in. They've just been confirmed. We don't really know what's going to happen with that, and that was our prediction. We don't know what's going to happen with it in 2025, and I'm going to say I don't know if it's going to get implemented or not in 2026. A lot of pros and cons in that standard related to acclimatization periods, how workers get paid during that acclimatization period, the threshold when it comes to temperature. But let me say this, while we're arguing about all that, you still need to protect your workers. It is obscene to me that workers die and go to the hospital in a workplace in 2025 from heat exhaustion or heat illnesses, right?
And again, we had a well-known case here in New England recently, heat exhaustion death. And I can't stress enough. It's very simple. Some of these things are pretty complex in the heat illness prevention standard that's been proposed, but there are some simple things that we can do. And again, it's like having a policy and putting that policy into action.
And
And we
OSHA
give you
will
full track.
enforce this under the general duty clause. A lot of state plans are, in the absence of a federal plan, a lot of states are taking up action. I think there are 9 states. Somebody can check me on that, but I think there's at least 9 states that either have a heat illness prevention standard or have one under consideration right now.
Number three, James. Number three. Ready? Remote
Yeah,
worker safety. I
go.
love this area, right? I think that there's some tremendous tech that has developed over the last 5 or so years, maybe even over the last decade on remote worker safety. You know, construction industry, we do have companies that have one-offs working places. GPS has been a godsend to a lot of us. You tell the story about North Dakota where you could see where your workers were. We have all kinds of remote worker safety or worker monitoring devices that have come on the market within the last several years that are tremendously, they're saving lives, they're monitoring workers, and they're making sure that we can actually keep tabs on people when they're working alone.
Now, I've been surprised in assessments how many companies, though, have remote workers, i.e., working alone, right? A lot of these cases, they're not working in groups, they're working alone, but we don't have a working alone policy program. And if we have the policy, we're not really implementing it. It's in paper only. So, did investigate these instances, but was made aware of a couple of real serious instances where people perished in 2025, and it was hours before they were discovered. And in one instance, discovered by their family members who couldn't get them on the phone and came working for them. You don't want to be in that situation as a company. If somebody needs help, we need to be able to get it to them quickly. So dust off your worker alone policies. Again, make sure you're trying to implement that. I'm actually on the ISO committee that is working on a standard for remote worker safety. Hope to have something out pretty soon on that. Number four, we talked about this ad nauseum.
In the last episode and in
Men-
other episodes this year.
in the workplace, mental health in the workplace. People bring their problems to work, and people's work problems they take home.
And that's not going to change.
That's not going to change.
So we need to have ways and to deal with this. I think have we come a long way? Yes, we've come a long way. Do I think that we've made great strides in mental health um, things in the workplace? I think we've given it more light.
I think
When we
we've
come
raised more awareness to it, but I don't know that we've done a good enough job of actually implementing things in the workplace.
I agree. I think we've got a lot of people talking about psychological safety, psychosocial hazards, all these different things, but actually putting it into practice and training people as mental health first aiders, or to be good leaders and good observers in the workplace, to help each other. I'm not so sure that we've done that great of a job. There are some companies that are doing great things, but I think overall we need to um, do a little more work there. Chevron deference.
All right, I'm gonna modify this one to Supreme Court actions.
Okay.
Okay, because when we first came out with this was the Chevron. The Supreme Court had struck down the historic case of Chevron, which gave deference to administrative agencies. Now you're seeing the court become more strict constructionist in their interpretations of authorities granted to agencies. And they're saying Congress needs to speak, not the agency, right? And if you look at how the Supreme Court decisions have been coming down, and as they're working their way through the court, I think you're going to see more clarification on what administrative agencies can do, should do, what their authorities are as far as rulemaking, et cetera. So I'm anxious to see what happens in 2026. I'll also say someone asked me about changes in employment law yesterday, what my views were. What I see on that track is just remember President Trump's executive order. For every one regulation you put in place, you have to have 10 that come off the books. So I don't know you're going to see a tremendous amount of new regulations come out of this administration in 2026. I'd be shocked. I'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
Okay. Let's talk about worker empowerment. Right. We touched on this in our last episode a little bit about making sure that number one, employees are trained correctly and given you know see something, say something, making sure that they know the signs of mental health problems, they know conflict resolution, etc. But putting into practice, how have we done with worker empowerment? Do you think this past year?
I think companies are clawing back. When we talked about this, work from home was a big thing coming out of COVID. A lot of people were working from home. You've seen companies say, okay, you're coming back to the workplace. That's one of the first lines of drawing back uh, influence over what a worker's day looks like, right? So I don't know if that's a good example or a bad example of worker empowerment, but when I think of worker empowerment, that was one of the things I thought about. You know, I get to work from home. That empowers me to have some flexibility in my schedule, etc. Right? So I do think workers lost ground some on that front, and more people are expecting you to come back to the workplace and perform your
Exactly.
duties. Having said that, the worker and the lack of workers in the workplace to fill all these roles still gives empowerment to the workforce. So the old days of that I grew up in, you're going to do this, and if you don't, we're going to find someone who will. That's gone, right? People need to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and empower workers to make decisions and have less centralized command and more decentralized command. So, in that aspect, I think worker empowerment met what our expectations were in 2025, and it's going to continue into 2026.
And I do see a lot more people in the field taking stop work authority, taking a greater interest not only in their safety but the safety of the whole company, right? And
Mhm.
it, again, that is pretty much specific to the company. I think a lot of companies are doing a good job. Some are still struggling with that, but I am seeing workers take a greater interest in their safety and using that stop work authority. So I think that's a good thing. Safety across the global supply chain. We've talked
Well,
about that a lot this last year.
we've seen a lot of this was really big in when the ESG movement had a lot of power, a lot of synergy behind it. And then all the issues with the S in ESG brought forth a lot of change and it lost a lot of momentum, frankly.
I would
Okay.
agree with that.
Now, what hasn't changed and companies still need to be aware of is the impacts, the reputational impacts, the financial impacts, the legal impacts of their supply chains on them themselves, right? So
Mhm,
you're starting to see more companies looking to the safety, which was a little part of the S in ESG, right? And ensuring that worker safety is not just something that we're concerned about in industrialized first world countries, right? People are being held accountable for their manufacturing facilities in underdeveloped or emerging economies.
mhm.
So what I've seen is in absence of local regulations, a lot of very large global companies are instituting for their supply chains contractor expectations. If you're going to work for us, you're going to adhere to this safety management system. Well, where
Mhm.
we live, we don't have a fall protection requirement. Well, guess what? If you're going to work in here, we're going to have a
You
fall
are.
protection requirement. And if you're a contractor working for us, you're going to have a fall protection requirement too. Roll Tide.
Yep. Roll
Well, you're
Tide.
working for James Junkin Global Enterprises.
Yeah. And I just want to tag onto that you mentioned ESG, right? And that was a big thing in 2024. We talked about it in a little 2025, and I do agree with you. I think that we've kind of fell off a little bit. I don't see as much publishing on ESG. Maybe a lot of the global companies are doing it, but there's not as big of a push anymore, at least in the circles that I revolve in, on ESG matters, on the sustainability part of that, or the environmental, right? And
Right.
so, that may be a function of our presidential administration right now. It could be a function of just global requirements, the
Ab-
economy.
Well,
Um,
I do think we don't use this phrase ESG, 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 some of the components, environmental. You
right.
don't think, hey, you don't think environmental is important? Call BP and ask them if they think environmental is important. They'll tell you it's
Yeah,
important, right? Having lived through the 2010 oil spill. Companies recognize their importance of being responsible citizens on this globe we're on.
yeah,
You don't think governance is important? Look at all the business scandals that we've had, right? And may continue to have. So for the investment community, we may not call it ESG. We may not be using that now. It's become very politically charged acronym ESG, but some of those elements of that ESG are super important still.
agreed, agreed. Let's get to this last one, data privacy and cybersecurity. I like this topic.
100%. I love this topic. It was a big issue in 2025. It's going to be a larger issue in 2026 and beyond, particularly as we get into the human robotic AI backed collaboration. Okay.
Yeah, I
As we
agree.
as we begin to take AI out of the computer and put it into devices that become assistants for us in the workplace and we work together, that's
Yeah,
going to be very important. Particularly when it comes to data privacy. I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes last week, but the AI assistant that they had um, read all their emails and drew some very interesting conclusions about coworker interactions from the emails. Then that
yeah,
the AI needed to be taken to HR and told you can't say that in the workplace, buddy. I'll get you
yeah,
fired around here. But
yeah,
I think as it grows, matures, it'll get more boundaries around it. Uh, but as far as data privacy is concerned, cybersecurity is concerned, there are a lot of bad actors out there. And the
yeah,
AI just helps them be even better bad actors. Phishing scams. Uh, I had one yesterday that was so real. It was from one of my vendors saying if you would sign up for this, you could get paid early. And I thought, wait a second, if you want to pay me early,
yeah, sign me up.
just send me a check, right? Why have I got to sign up and put my information into this? But it looked real. It had their logo on it. It had their email address was plausible, and it was a scam. It was a
Yeah,
scam. Unknowing folks would have put their bank account information and routing numbers in there, and the next thing you know, they're broke. So, uh, I think data privacy, cybersecurity, not only from protection of financial assets, but protection of personal information, personal identifying information, corporate information, and then we hadn't even I think we did an episode, didn't we do one on physical security? Like a lot of these plants and things are run off of systems that can be hacked. You can turn valves, you can close systems, you can shut things off. So look, there are a lot of ill actors out there that will use technology against you.
yeah, and I've seen this too on construction sites. We're becoming more automated, and we're transferring a lot more data on some of these large projects, and it's just a big security risk, right? Um, about data systems in buildings. The more buildings become automated, etc., we put ourselves at risk of being hacked or taking our systems down when we least expect it. So
We
I agree
skipped
with that.
we skipped one and we talked about long-term effects of COVID. All right. That was 2024 coming out of the pandemic into 2025. There's obviously some long-term effects that we saw in 2025 from COVID. Interested to see your opinion on whether or not we will continue to see long-term effects of the pandemic into 2026.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on, getting back to work, right? I have seen a lot of companies demanding that people go back to the office, that they occupy the workspaces that they previously had downsized. I've seen companies, close part of their buildings, now reopen part of their buildings, and everybody's back at work. Um, where we found that we could work remotely before. and I think we've become very good at it. We've lost the human element in a lot of different interactions, and I think um, that becomes an issue with some of these issues that we talk about, like mental health and running committees on things and interacting with people and sharing knowledge. And so I think that's a long-term effect of COVID. I think eventually that ship will right and we'll find some happy medium, but we haven't done it yet.
And I know how exhausting it was to go through the pandemic, live through it just like you and all of our listeners. We were glad for it to be over and like, I'm so over this, right? Hey, don't get over it too much. Flu season's here. People come to work. You need to still remind folks about practicing hand hygiene, being responsible, because the flu is terrible. And we're about to get into that season. There's a lot of other parts of the country are already in the season. Kids bring it home from school, give it to you. You get it, take it to work, give it to your coworkers. So, hey,
It comes back again, goes round and round, right?
and along with the flu, also comes COVID,
Right.
right?
Right.
So there are some long term effects there. Don't forget your COVID policies, and it's just worker, um, what we would call that, uh,
Well-being, health and well-being, right?
well being. Absolutely.
So going into the holidays, I just want to say to our listeners, I think we're happy that you listened to us. Thank you so much for being faithful to us and listening to us talk. We want to hear from you. We'd like to have some of you on for guests next year. Please reach out and let us know if you want to come on and talk about something. But I will say this: the holidays are a time to be with your family, to enjoy. So take care of yourself. Exercise good safety in your home. Encourage your loved ones and your coworkers to do the same so that we can all kind of come out of this holiday season refreshed and ready to hit 2026.
A lot of you will be driving during the holiday season. Um, Unfortunately, because more people are on the road, sometimes inclement weather, a lot of accidents during that time period. Make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to get to your destination. And nobody likes to leave and come back to work, but make sure you're not rushing back. Fatigue is always a factor in a lot of these accidents. So I just want to remind people about driving safety, plan your trips, drive safely because we want to see all of you in 2026. Because here's what I want for Christmas. I want you to like the Risk Matrix, baby. I want you to subscribe to the Risk Matrix. And I want you to share the Risk Matrix podcast. That's what I want for Christmas. And Papa gets what he wants for Christmas. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. So thanks again. We appreciate you. Tell all your friends. Bring people to the table to talk about these things. We want to talk. We don't want to just have James and my opinion on everything. We'd like to hear from our
You know
listeners.
what I want? I want a debate. I want somebody to come on the podcast and let's have an honest, respectful debate about something.
All right. We can do that in the new year. So
Let's
thanks
do it.
again. Happy holidays to everybody. And I just want to say it just depends. And James,
Roll Tide, baby. Y'all keep bringing those workers home safe in 2026. Out.
happy holidays.